Our topic is fraud. Our group members are Andrew Snyder, Cory MacLean, Janelle Vanhie, Julia Pyke, Ryan Drake, and Sam Gallant. And our group name is Risky Business.
Fraud is the intentional misstatement or omission of amounts or disclosure in financial statements to deceive users. It is often done for one's own agenda or personal financial gain by abusing their position or authority in business. In this presentation, we will be covering misappropriation of assets, the fraud triangle, which consists of incentives and pressures, opportunities, and attitudes and rationalization, as well as detecting fraud and collusion.
Misappropriation of assets is the intentional, illegal use of another person's property or finances for personal use or gain. Misappropriation of assets is a category of fraud and is also the most common form of fraud. A common form of misappropriation of assets is the theft of physical items such as cash or inventory. Another example of misappropriation of assets is using company property, such as a vehicle, for personal use. Misappropriation of assets also includes the sale of intellectual property of one company to a competitor company.
Management or other employees may have incentives or pressures to commit fraud or theft. These include cash, which can easily be stolen or misused if there are a lack of internal controls, as well as bonuses. Employees or management may receive bonuses if the company meets certain targets. Other incentives might be debt covenants and ratios. The company may have an incentive to commit fraud to meet certain target debt covenants and ratios set by banks or other regulators.
Opportunities. Sometimes the company itself may be partly responsible for fraud by providing ideal circumstances for someone to commit the act. Some examples that lead to fraud opportunity include poor internal controls. These are controls that a company puts in place to reduce fraud risk. This can be as simple as how cash is counted at the end of a shift and who has access to that cash. New systems. A lack of people who have access to the accounting systems and who are knowledgeable about how the systems work can create opportunity. High employee turnover. Someone who is new to the company may be less confident to speak up against a coworker or especially a superior who appears to be committing fraud.
Attitudes or rationalization, which is when an attitude, character, or set of ethical values exists that allows management or employees to intentionally commit a dishonest act, or they're in an environment that imposes pressure sufficient to cause them to rationalize committing a dishonest act. Some situations that may cause an member to commit a dishonest act are being underpaid, which may provide incentive to steal from the company because they feel like they deserve more. Poor company culture, which gives members a negative attitude towards the company, potentially leading to fraud. And it was not perceived as being wrong, where members of the organization that commit fraud may not have known that their actions were wrong in the first place.
How to detect fraud. The first thing you can do as an auditor is talk to the staff. By doing so, you can get an overall feel of the attitudes of the employees and the culture of the company. Ask the employees if they were to commit fraud, how would they do it? By doing so, you can find vulnerable areas where fraud could occur. The second thing you can do as an auditor are analytical procedures. Look for unusual relationships or trends that may look fraudulent or suspicious. Gain an understanding of the business environment in which your client operates. The third thing you can do as an auditor is assess risk of fraud. Focus on higher risk areas of the company. Be aware of where controls might be weak, and take a look at areas where management have the ability to override transactions. Detecting fraud isn't an easy task for auditors. By talking to staff, using analytical procedures, and assessing the risk, as an auditor, you'll have a greater chance of detecting fraud.
Collusion occurs when two or more people decide to work together to commit fraud, most likely employees of the business. There are more opportunities to commit fraud when there is more than one person involved, and with multiple people working together, it may be harder to detect, as well as determine who has committed fraud.
Rusty's Bar is the local watering hole in Wolfville. The manager has noticed that since students returned in September, occupancy has doubled while sales have only increased by 50%. The manager believes something is wrong but isn't sure what the issue might be.
This is the manager, Gary. Gary owns half the bar and has been the manager of the bar since it first opened. Gary keeps a close relationship with his employees and is very social with customers. In the past couple months, Gary has noticed that there has been almost twice as many people in the bar each night. After looking at the financial statements for October and November, Gary notices that his sales numbers are not as high as they should be.
Owner number 2 is Doug. Doug owns the other 50% of the bar. He's not around much because of his other businesses. Doug also loves to gamble.
Steve, a 22-year-old bartender at Rusty's, has been there now for 2 years. Steve is known for his friendly demeanor and is a favorite among regulars because he's knowledgeable about many subjects, including sports, and can talk to just about anyone. He has been working evenings and weekends at Rusty's while he is a student at a local university. He often mentions how hard it is to be a student away from home because living expenses are high and continuously running up his student loan. Steve is a bartender, so he has access to cash and product, including alcohol. He does not close the bar at night, and all money at the end of the night is counted by and recorded by a manager or owner.
Bartender 2, she just started working at the bar 2 months ago. She goes to Acadia and took the job to help pay for school. She is very inexperienced and sometimes gives customers the wrong amount of change on busy nights, so the manager has been keeping a close eye on her. She claims to be not very good at math and gets overwhelmed when a lot of people order drinks at once.
The bookkeeper is a sweet old lady who looks after the books for Risky Business. She has been working there since the bar opened and has close relationships with the owners and employees that have been there a while. Everyone at the bar seems to love her, and she gets along with the new employees very quickly.
The owner determined that it was the bookkeeper and bartender 2 that were colluding to commit fraud and misappropriation of assets. Poor internal controls allowed bartender 2 to steal receipts for drink orders and pocket the cash. Later on, the bookkeeper would make journal entries to eliminate any trace of bartender 2 stealing the money. The owner discovered this on a busy Friday night when he noticed that the bartender 2 was stealing receipts. Upon confronting bartender 2, the bartender confessed to everything, while also throwing the bookkeeper under the bus. Both employees were fired and the owner is now pursuing legal options.